So there was a couple of ways I was thinking about going about this one. Um, if they had won this game, I probably would have been way more energetic and motivated to talk about it, and it would have been a video episode. We would have had the camera up and everything, uh, and it looked like it could have been headed for a win or at least a competitive final score in the early stages of the game. You know, because I thought they were doing some good things early on. The Knicks, I think for a team that just came back from break and hadn't played since fucking Wednesday, I thought there was some good stuff. I thought Brunson's early hedges to Cade Cunningham were pretty good. I thought there was good pace, good space. I thought they were getting paint touches and spraying out. Um, and some of those good traits actually maintained throughout the game, which we'll talk about. But the Knicks obviously fell apart as they continued to do, as they usually do. They usually do this against this team. And so the Detroit Pistons are now 3-0, or I should say they swept the Knicks. That's all they'll play them in the regular season. They swept the Knicks 3-0 with a 126 to 111 final score. So, listen, I'll start off by saying the obvious. And I like to think that most of you are sophisticated enough to know that it is a very basic mentality to predict or try and predict playoff success off of regular season matchups. It's not just basic, but it's incorrect. Like, there's no correlation. It's been proven by data. It's just also common sense. You saw it last year with your own eyes. The Knicks got blistered. They got bullied by the Celtics all season long. There was that whole narrative, the Knicks are 0 whatever against this team, that team, and the Celtics were one of those teams. And we all know what happened in the playoffs against them. It's the Knicks Pistons stuff this year, it's all for media coverage. It's all for clicks. It's all for, engagement, storylines for social media, for fans to make it loud. If you're a sophisticated fan, you don't take it that serious. You worry more about other things. Because that said, there are some real issues that the Knicks have to figure out if they want to beat this Detroit team in the playoffs again. Do they meet? And while there are positives to take, there are real concerning signs here. And honestly, it's super concerning because some of those signs point to the head coach. Some of those signs point to one of the star players on this team. And it's not changed much all season long. Now, if we're talking strictly offensive process, what was the engine looking like last night for the Knicks? I thought for most of the night, the Knicks got excellent looks. They got really good looks. And that obviously matters way more than makes or misses long term. Process is what we're supposed to be looking at here in the regular season. Because makes and misses, whatever. That's a coin flip. You can't control making or missing. What you can control is putting yourself in the best possible scenario to get the best possible shot off. Right? You can control that. That type of stuff, it builds good habits. It creates sustainable offense. If you're consistently doing the things that get you good looks, then the shots are bound to fall more than the other way around. So overall, I did think the offense in that aspect, because there are other parts of this offense which we're going to get into in a second, good God, I thought that was a big positive. That the Knicks were 8 for 35 from three, 23%. I think that's a good thing because we know they shoot the ball very well on most nights, and if they don't shoot well in the playoffs, they're not going to go anywhere. And odds are, across a series of best of 7, they will shoot the ball well. So they were generating really good looks. OG Anunoby got a ton of wide open three-point looks. He couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. Even smoked a wide open layup on that transition pass from Cat. Probably not the smartest decision there by Cat, but you don't miss that shot. Got to make that shot. Bridges had some open looks. Passing up some open looks at the basket for that stupid mid-range that he goes to. Brunson had open looks. Brunson had himself a good game offensively. The Knicks were generating good looks, and I did not have a problem with the way their offense was being ran until the fourth quarter when the game was already out of hand. Karl-Anthony Towns got open looks, and that, folks, is where I want to segue. Because in this game, the Pistons, obviously, some guys banged up and some guys suspended, had to put their big on Karl Towns for most of this game. And the Knicks and Towns were still going away from those actions. There were still moments in this game where I thought that Cat was involved properly, right? Like, was it maybe moments in the second quarter and then at the top of the second half? Right? There were plays that Mike Brown ran that were called for Cat to do specific things, like plays that called for him to screen and then roll and not pop the screen, and plays that called for him to just do things that open up his teammates and do things that open up himself. But a lot of the other aspects, the other large portion of this game, that was not happening. And the blame honestly falls on in a lot of areas. It's on his teammates, it's on the head coach, and it's on Cat himself. We talk about all the time how Cat's teammates have to do a better job of finding him. We talk about Brunson's tunnel vision, or sometimes because of his height, his inability to make the pass, even if he makes the read, off of the pick and roll to Cat. And how Kolek and Alvarado, even most of the time, has done a nice job of finding him right away. His teammates still need to just overall do a better job of hitting the post whenever Cat has a small or a wing on him, when he has that mismatch. And I thought Alvarado, not great at doing that in this game at times. And at the same time, Cat struggles with his, with slower decision making when he's got a small on the post or a wing, and that wing or that small is being very physical, and the defense sends help from the second side, and he's slow to make a decision. That's a whole thing. You get the turnovers, you get the forced drives, and it's just a mess. You had Cat rolling into traffic instead of popping with the big on him. There was no switch. The big was on him in a drop, and he still rolls. And that continues to be a problem. Just way too uncomfortable shooting threes for a guy who's in the league because he shoots threes better than most bigs ever. And then when Cat screens, and if the defense does switch the screen, that's got to flow into a Cat post-up immediately to avoid that scram switch. Or the ball handler off that pick and roll should be quick to attack the mismatch off the switch. But as far as getting him three-point looks goes, he took 4 in this game. The second quarter There was a possession. Jose Alvarado, who was 0 for 5 from 3, and honestly, he has had some bad 3-point looks as a Knick so far. There was a possession second quarter. He takes a 3. He gets blocked. And if you watch this, it's off of a pick and roll. Cat rolls right into traffic, but he had the entire weak side. So he rolls into bodies instead of making the weak side pop. There were multiple possessions in that first half especially where Cat had a wide open pop and he chooses to roll into multiple bodies. Now that's the other part of it where we have to look at Mike Brown. Because as far as Mike Brown goes, listen, I watched the MSG telecast last night, but I'm on social media. From what I hear, the national telecast, I think it was Prime, kind of more of the same, more of what you would expect. A lot of people complaining about, I think it was SVG, just talking about the very typical casual, old school take about Cat needing to attack the basket. Just the default old school take about big men, right? But if you watch the game and you pay attention to the schematics of what's going on, you can't get that. Cat can't play smash mouth basketball. He can't play low paint basketball because Detroit was sending bodies to the paint. Since the Knicks, Mike Brown was playing right into their hands by avoiding 5-out rotations. If the Knicks were more willing to play 5-out, right, with 5 good to great shooters on the floor at the same time, well, guess what? The paint opens up for those drives. And you can't load up and you can't help on the first side without penalty because now you're in rotation to a good shooter off the weak side pass. So this very default take about Cat needs to attack the basket, it just ignores context. Pay attention to what's actually happening on the floor. We need better analysts, man, in basketball. And I say this all the time. We talk about it all the time. We ragged on it when TNT was a thing. Either we need better analysts, or they need to do their homework more, or they just need to adopt and know what they're watching now. You can't run these lineups where Cat is basically just playing inside a phone booth, and the Knicks in the half court are playing inside a phone booth. Watch that and be like, hey, they need to attack the basket more. That's what they need to do. With how? I mean, somehow they scored 111 last night. That would have been 800. That would have been 80-something points if they had went to the paint with the spacing or lack of spacing that they had. It's frustrating because it started pretty promising with Mike Brown talking about the rotations. It looked like he was more willing and more flexible to play a more streamlined style of offense. And when you have a roster like this that's very versatile, and it is very modern in the way you can attack, it makes it that much more frustrating because this coach is just going right back into the habits that we had with our previous coach. He just needs to be more willing. The Knicks ran 5-out last night against that defense. Shout out to the guys on Locked On Knicks. For less than 3 minutes the entire night. And it looked good, of course, when they did. He needs to be more willing with this rotation that he has to make the defense pay when they recover off the help, force them to make longer closeouts. when you've got 5 guys who can space out, either they're not going to send help and you can dominate those matchups, or they do send help and then you put them in rotation. You can't play this low paint style of ball. You can't get your paint touches if you're playing lineups that have multiple interior-minded players on the floor, or even just one. So that was very frustrating last night. I think that was a big reason Cat was not getting involved like a lot of Knicks fans wanted him to. So it was just frustrating. Very frustrating. We're going to head to a quick break, get back, and for a few minutes, talk about the defense, which was really the issue last night. Stay with us. Be back in a sec.
Quick break here, guys. Stay connected with BD4 on social media. Follow us on Instagram and X at BD4Pod, and find us on Facebook by searching BD4. Don't miss out. Join the conversation. Want more BD4? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss an episode. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and share with your fellow fans. Don't forget to ring that bell so you're always the first to know when a new video drops. Love BD4 but don't have the time to sit down and watch? Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leave us a 5-star rating and a quick review. It helps us grow and keeps the conversation going.
All right, welcome back to episode 1006. Last night, the Detroit Pistons scored 126 points at the Garden. Did it with 30 assists. They shot 52% from the floor and 43% on 33s. So that is something that we haven't really talked about much. This is not a team that takes many threes or makes many threes. They have shot like a great three-point shooting team when they play the Knicks. I'm not confident in that team maintaining that across a 7-game series if it comes to it. And they were 85% on 20 free throw attempts. Yeah, they Cade Cunningham, 42 points, took 35 shots, but obviously torched that team. Cade Cunningham torched the Knicks. They had no answer. I don't know. I have to go back and watch the film. I still haven't gotten around to it yet. I had a busy day, but the Knicks had been having recent success, other than that Indiana game, with ice coverages, right? They have been bluing pick and roll to the side of the floor, keeping the guard out of the middle so he can't have that clear vision. And they've been pretty successful at it, again, outside of the Pacers game where they were just popping on them. But their ice coverages were working well. And I even thought there were some good ones in the Sixer game before break. They kind of went away from that against the Sixers. I want to see if I can pull up a quote from Begley who got Mike Brown to talk about, rather, the Knicks not icing pick and roll. And Begley posted this on Twitter after last night's game. He said, regarding Cade Cunningham, Mike Brown said the Knicks didn't force him to the sideline, let him get to the middle of the floor too often. That's icing the pick and roll. One of the Knicks' defensive adjustments during pre-All-Star winning streak was forcing the ball to the sideline. Cunningham seemed to get anywhere he wanted tonight. So, yeah, I mean, that's it. That's what we basically just said, and it just wasn't as aggressive last night. You thought they would hedge more, but Detroit spent a lot of that time when they were in the half court hunting Jalen Brunson off of his hedges and switches. And they were forcing him into primary action with whoever Brunson was on. That guy came into screen, and then they would force him into low man help on the weak side. They would relocate that screener to the weak side. So now Brunson's got to tag as low man when the Knicks are in high coverage. And often he was tagging off of a good shooter like a Duncan Robinson, and he lit the Knicks up. I didn't think the Knicks hid Brunson well enough. I didn't think there was enough activity prior to the ball screen to get him off, to scram switch him off or to pre-switch him before the action. I think next time they need to be a little more aggressive there. And so, yeah, and a lot of it comes down to just also play better defense, whatever coverage you are going to play. And, I don't like dropping on pick and rolls when you're playing Cade Cunningham. I never liked drop coverage on Cade. He's a guy who is an elite pull-up shooter. That's, drop coverage on a pull-up guard is asking for death. But I thought Mitchell Robinson was a little lackluster defensively. He's been up and down this year on that end. But, yeah, overall, I really I did question some of the coverages. And I do think, though, Jeremy Sohan looked good in his minutes defensively. I mean, the spacing's atrocious when he's out there. But I think that's a good idea. If we're trying to slow Cade Cunningham down in a postseason, it's got to be OG Anunoby. It's got to be Jeremy Sohan. If Deuce McBride is healthy by then, I wouldn't mind that because he can fight over the point of attack well, fight off ball screens. Yeah, they got torched. It was a bad game. I'm not going to go too much deeper into it, man, because that's all I have. Just the best player on the floor for the Knicks last night, we're going to hand to Brunson. Jalen Brunson scored 33 points, had 6 rebounds, 8 assists, a couple of steals. He shot 12 for 20, 60% from the floor. He was 3 out of 7 from 3, 43%, and he knocked down all 6 of his foul shots. Did have 6 turnovers, did have 4 fouls, and he was a -9 across 38 minutes. But he was the best offensive player on the floor for the Knicks last night. 26 game balls now on the season. Obviously, he leads the team there. Not his best game, but knocked down his shots, right? You go to the bench. I think Landry Shamet was pretty good. So I'll say Landry Shamet from the second unit was the best Knick. He has 7 game balls now on the season. In this game, he produced 15 points, blocked a shot, shot 4 out of 10, 3 of 8 from 3, which means he was 1 for 8 from 2, and 4 of 6 at the foul line. Sorry, I knew that sounded wrong. He was 1 for 2 from 2. Yeah, Landry Shamet -13 though in 28 minutes. So nobody was really, positive. I think the 2 Knicks with the positive plus minus was OG and Karl. So I think that's it, man. Listen, I don't hate Pistons fans. So I'm going to say something really quickly about the Pistons. I think the Pistons are a fun team. I think it's good for their fans to finally have something to watch. It reminds me a lot of the Knicks from a few years ago before they made the trade for Bridges and later Towns. Just this tough, physical team, but also a very limited team. Also a team that's not very, in my opinion, destined for success in the modern game. They're very defense reliant. They're very paint heavy. And they don't take nearly enough threes, in my opinion. Teams like that usually don't fare well against good teams in the playoffs. But they do make for fun regular seasons. So I'm not saying I think the Knicks will beat them in the series. I think regardless of how they do against the Knicks, if they match up, I don't see Detroit coming out of the East. I think they're very capable of beating the Knicks in a 7-game series. I do. And I think if the Knicks don't make these adjustments that they just haven't made enough, and when I say the Knicks, I mean Mike Brown, I don't think they have a shot if they don't make them. But yeah, Detroit's, they're a tough team. They're a fun regular season team, and I'm happy for their fans. But up next for the Knicks, up next, we've got a back-to-back set. That'll be fun. Already a back-to-back. Saturday, Sunday, you got Houston and Chicago. You're home versus Houston. So one more game at the Garden against the Rockets here for the first time this year, I believe. And then you go to Chicago to play the Bulls. Be nice to win. It would be nice to win both, to be honest. But hey, we'll see. Speaking of three-pointers, I believe Houston's a team that does not take a lot. I think Chicago's a team that does take a lot. With that said, let's wrap this episode up with our trivia question right now. And that trivia question is, the Knicks and Pistons have met in the playoffs 4 times, with New York winning 3 of those series. Which years did the Knicks come out on top? Obviously, last year being one of them. The Knicks and Pistons have met in the playoffs 4 times, with New York winning 3 of those series. Which years did the Knicks come out on top? Okay. So with that said, that's all we got. Appreciate everybody for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next show. Go Knicks. Hey guys, thank you for listening to BD4. Be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time.